In the broadest of terms, a maverick is a free spirit, a nonconformist. The maverick is the person who can never fit into the cookie-cutter corporate framing society intends for us all. The filmmaker we are discussing today represents the strongest attributes of the maverick mindset. His name, Spike Lee. No stranger to controversy, Lee has made a career out of challenging his audiences and taking an honest look at racial issues and complex societal problems facing specifically the African American community.
Jackson Lee was born in Georgia, Atlanta on March the 20th, 1957. He then grew up in Brooklyn, New York. Spike Lee attended Morehouse College, where he majored in mass communication. It was here he found his calling. He enrolled in the Tisch School of Arts graduate film program at New York University and won the 1983 Motion Picture Arts and Science Student Academy Award for his film Joe's Bed-Stuy Barbershop, We Cut Heads. Spike has been instrumental in the way African Americans are portrayed on screen and has dedicated his career to make sure they are not only stereotypes of crime and poverty. Lee had an uncanny ability to capture the nuances and complexities of African American life in his subsequent films. These, however, pale in comparison to his second masterpiece, Malcolm X. Lee had been talking about making a biopic about this controversial black leader ever since his days at film school. And when he heard that the Warner Brothers were developing a feature, he jumped on the opportunity, saying loudly that a black man has to direct this film and that he was the man for the job. With a limited budget and many obstacles, Lee managed to make his masterpiece of cinema.
Accompanying the controversial content of the film Malcolm X is Spike Lee's vibrant techniques. Spike Lee's approach to making this film was often the use of pastiches of techniques as with his other films. Like the dreamlike sequences he creates that define the parameters of realistic or lifelike biopics. Spike Lee is one of the most creative directors of his generation. It shows with his choice of camera angles. He can often find a way to give extra weight to small activities, and it is through his choice of interesting angles and camera movement that he holds the audience attention. He often mixes media in his film and uses stock footage to reveal events to support the subject matter. Malcolm X is no different. Another technique used in this film, which let you know immediately that this is Spike Lee's film. It is the free-floating dolly shot. This technique has become like a signature, and this is used in many of his films. It is when Spike Lee puts both actor and the camera on the same dolly and move them both through the scene. This creates a very surreal, dreamy kind of shot, and it appears as if the character is floating through the scene. He or she looks untouched by everything for a moment. In the case of Malcolm X, it creates the sense of inevitability as it happens on his way to the sermon where he'll be executed, like fate is pulling him there.
A common theme explored in Spike Lee's movies is racism. His vision shows no favoritism and he spares no races. His use of interviews and social commentary give different cultures the opportunity to look honestly into the hearts and minds of their people. He also explores hypocrisy and lies, as well as various stereotypes which remain in society today. Not only are his films about racial tensions, but also about the tensions within each race. It is because of his devotion to capturing real African American life and experiences that he has been such a vocal critic of the way African Americans are portrayed in Hollywood. His stance on the matter has made public perception of him to be an angry and brilliant director. As often the case with mavericks, he is still considered a bit of an outsider in Hollywood because of his unflinching vision and belief in his work. He almost always uses his home, Brooklyn, as the location of his films and also acts in almost all of his films, usually as a comic relief character or a smaller role. In terms of sound, Malcolm X is full of instances where sound is cleverly used as a foreshadowing tool and not in a realistic sense. The gunshot sound motif is used throughout the film.
One more. Jesus! Stupid, rotten, stinking copper!
A big theme which gets explored in Malcolm X is transformation. How Malcolm changes from a drug-addicted thug to a quiet prisoner, to a radical follower of the Nation of Islam, to finally a peaceful man who learns that all races can come together. Another strong theme is violence, especially racial violence, which leads up to the big theme, which is racism. Malcolm X delves deep into what it meant to be black in America in the early and mid-20th century. Spike Lee manages to give us a personal feeling look into the entirety of Malcolm X's life. Denzel Washington, an actor that has frequently been used in Spike Lee's films, achieved great depth with his portrayal of Malcolm X, thanks to Lee's excellent directing skills. Another element which Spike Lee accomplishes with great merit in this film is the ever-changing dynamic relationships between the characters, from friends to enemies, from prophet to traitor, from mentor to adversary. Lee grips the audience with the notion that life is cyclical, as we see Malcolm's life unfold as his father's before him.
Having paved the way for Lee Daniels, John Singleton and Dee Rees, Spike Lee has continued to marvel the industry. Going against the grain, having a perspective and personal voice, prominent and unique enough to alter long-term trends, thus undoubtedly deserving to be called a maverick. The audience at large demands and expects worthwhile material from directors. It is undoubted that a maverick director will have to overcome a mountain of challenges on the road to success. This, as he will have had to have gone to supreme lengths, both to establish and prove himself by establishing and introducing his personal style into his movie, as well as to grab, sustain, and grow his audience. Some of his movies have suffered their fair shares of critical attacks, some not even producing desirable turnouts or revenue. Even though getting Malcolm X done was a great challenge, financially and artistically, it did not dishearten Spike Lee. He produced an epic blockbuster and an explicit treatment of the man's life. Critics rated his movie phenomenal, from some saying Malcolm X has an epic sweep and scope, and as a director, Lee was up to the challenge, and that he is served well by being able to direct in several styles. He brings about some very welcome comic relief to break up the tension and seriousness of the rest of the film.
Spike Lee has blazed a unique trail through American cinema these last few decades, creating a diverse body of work that records the African American experience in a way that no other filmmaker has ever dared. Lee's films range from incendiary political polemics to screwball comedies and violent crime thrillers, all of which are stamped with his own particular auteur brand. Some of his greatest works, excluding Malcolm X, which obviously sits at the pinnacle of Spike Lee's cinematic achievements, are Do the Right Thing. Since Spike Lee grew up in Brooklyn and matured as an artist in the 80s, a time when racial tensions were high and a vibrant, colorful culture occupied the streets, it's fitting that one of his best work took place here, a perfect snapshot of the decade. 25th Hour, probably his best script since Malcolm X, Lee created a depiction of a grieving post-9/11 New York that also works as a masterful analysis of people who have to live with their sins. She's Gotta Have It, the first feature offering from Spike Lee, full of sexual politics and provocative themes. It delivers decades of underrepresented African American life and culture in one constantly imaginative film.
I am not a one-man woman.
The list goes on, from challenging audience perception of African Americans on TV in Bamboozled to talking about the taboos of interracial relationships in Jungle Fever. His body of work is impressive and a testament to the power a filmmaker can have on the public's perceptions.
Malcolm X is layered with meaning, style, and provocative acting, and dialogue, and serves as a testament of Spike Lee's strong will as a director and artist. Raw and powerful are his films, deep and thoughtful are his messages, unique and individualistic is his approach. Spike Lee, maverick amongst mavericks.